We're just going to welcome you as we always do. We appreciate the investment you're doing in the growth of your company. And we know, as we've seen in the past, if you invest in yourself, it definitely will be a great harvest for you. So welcome to you on behalf of the United States Department of Transportation's Small Business Training Resource Center effort. We're one of 11 across the country. Just glad that you're with us today in the Nashville BEP. I'll be handling a quick audit for Ms. Beth this evening. So the question is this, how many of you are out there? How many pictures do we have of you and how many names are right? Those are 3 questions, and Ms. Beth will follow up with you tomorrow. We've sent you out a list of the names, and it's important that you look at that because once we send them to Washington, the names must be correct because we'd like to print certificates one time. We've already gotten some information from you, some corrections, and that's great. So we want to get that all. We need to get it up there by tomorrow, so we can get them back in time for your celebration and graduation. This evening, we're going to ask something different of you. Remember when we had the 30-second elevator pitch that you guys did? You were amazing at that. We want you to do something like that, not as much. And this is going to be kind of our roll call this evening. We want you to kind of quick introduce yourself. And the purpose of this is to make sure that the instructors know who you are and what your company is and how they can listen to you as far as what you do so they can better enable them to kind of share some nuggets of information they've had for over 20 or 30, probably plus years of experience. If I added them all up, it'd probably be more like 100 together for their whole team. So that will help them help you better. So with that in mind, what we want to do is start from the top and let's say Marcus, Mr. Anderson, let you go first. And then we'll follow up. Whoever's left in the class will just follow that list as we go down the road. So again, just a quick intro, who you are, what you do, no pressure. Just we're all family here. We've been here a long time together. So just kind of give us an idea of who you are, and we'll let Mr. Marcus Anderson begin.
You know, Detroit always going first on a lot of things. So yeah, I'll
come
do
on
that.
Now. I love it. I used to live in Detroit.
I'll do that. Yes, my name is Marcus Anderson. Name of my company is Anderson Paint Store, and I am a paint supplier of bridge paint and road paint products.
Roddy, who's next? Who's up next? Just don't be shy.
My name is Walt Portram, and our company is 4K Construction. We're general contractors in the Memphis, Tennessee area. We do all kinds of construction work, you know, commercial and residential.
Okay. Who's next?
My name is Daryl Jackson. I'm Chief Operating Officer at Infinity Supply. We're industrial supplies, value-added reseller. We focus on working with GCs and supplying them with piping, as well as pumps. So do a lot of work in the wastewater treatment facility sector of the business, as well as natural gas.
Perfect. Next up.
I'm Carl Todd. I'm with Elite Roofing Company of Nashville. We do commercial, residential, and industrial roofing.
Perfect. Next up.
I'm Nikki. I'm a general contractor for construction, residential, and commercial work. I'm actually located in Louisville, Kentucky.
Thank you. Next up.
Yes, my name is Travis Price. I'm with Precise Circuit Solutions. I'm a electrical contractor. We're an electrical contracting company that does commercial and residential projects.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Next up.
My name is Cliff Steger. I'm with CD Steger Construction, founder and president. A general contractor doing mostly competitive bid and mostly government work. As a general, my concentration has been on trying to bring other DBEs, minority women-owned companies, together to the bid projects that they couldn't do on their own.
All right.
We've been doing primarily commercial public works.
Thank you so much. Next up.
Hi, my name is Fantina Durham, Durham Housing and Construction Services. We're out of Memphis, Tennessee. I'm the owner and founder. We specialize in construction trade and transportation of construction materials and goods across the United States, all 48 states.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Fantina.
All
Next
right.
up.
My name is Emmanuel Pombe. I'm the owner of ABS Engineering. We are a civil engineering company. We have also a contractor license, and we're trying to explore how we can grow our business into construction, mostly with municipalities, because that's who we're working with mostly right now. Hopefully we can be doing some design build.
Oh, great. Good deal. I've learned something tonight. Anybody else? I think that might have been all.
You got Angelo here with 4K.
Okay, come on. That's great.
I'm one of the partners with 4K Construction, so I was just adding on with my partner Walter said.
Wonderful, wonderful. Glad you're here. Anybody else?
We got it to work.
Oh, great. There you go, Ms. Beth. Perfect. Anyone else? Ms. Beth, before we close out, since you get audio, we'll look at the list a little bit more later on. So just to reinforce, thank you so much for making an introduction. Just to reinforce to you that Ms. Beth sent you some information over regarding the names and what have you. And if you've seen some classes that you missed, so some of you, at least one of you has contacted us as far as how to go through some orientation. We're glad to do that with you. Just let us know that you're ready, willing, and able to do that. We'll invest the time with you, kind of go over. What we won't do, I'll be honest with you, is send you the presentation and that'll be it, right? What we're gonna do is send you the information, but we're gonna have to go through it page by page as best we can to make sure that there's some saturation of what was provided to you. And if you have any questions, we'll be glad to field those. If we can't get the answers, we'll invest and engage the subject matter experts to be able to do that, okay? All right. Oh, thank you so much. So we're gonna go and now kind of begin with some introductions. Next slide. Before we do that, we're gonna look at, these are the questions that we provided you from the last session. So we wanted to make sure that you revisited them. We've received some information from you, some we didn't. We're looking forward to getting some additional information from you guys. And as we talked about last time, when we were together as a BEP class, some of you may know this information. Our point in that session was to make sure that you looked at it from a business owner's perspective and that don't necessarily give all your insurance to your insurance broker and say yes, right? You should understand what's in the document, how it impacts you. We talked about the EMR, how important that is to your bottom line. If you have some worker comps hits, you go over one, bad for your business. And it's tough to get off the one list. If you're on the one list, it takes time to get off of that. So we reinforce that. So take a look at these. And if you hadn't sent the information over to us, even if you know it, just say yes, just send it so we're real clear that you got this information. Any questions about that this is the last time we were together. We talked about insurance and banking. We had a good presentation from our friend with Citizen Trust Bank. Any questions? All right. We'll go to the next slide. So this evening we have the benefit and pleasure to engage old friends of ours with an organization. They'll tell you a little bit more about that. And I'll introduce the two principals of the organization. First, I'll start off with Mr. Lee Thomas. He's the CEO of Project Cost Solutions, PCS. He's responsible for the overall strategy, direction, and operation. Lee's experience and knowledge in the government contracting industry includes managing, reviewing, and implementing strategic business processes, which he now employs in the development of PCS's organizational design. An MBA graduate of the University of Georgia's Terry College of Business, Lee also has more than 20 years of hands-on operational experience and proven ability to lead in cutting-edge business ventures. That introduces you to Mr. Lee Thomas. We'll have next. We have next Mr. Lou Parkins. He has over 40 years plus, I say plus, years of experience as a cost consultant and project principal. Prior to joining PCS, Lewis served as the president and general manager of US Cost Inc., a leading provider of professional cost engineering services in North America. At US Cost, Lewis was responsible for providing professional cost engineering services to corporate owners, government agencies, program managers, architects, engineers, contractors, and others in the construction industry. My brothers and sisters, you have an amazing team of professionals that's going to share some great information with you. So get ready, get your pencil sharpened, and let's engage.
Well, that was an incredible introduction, Hebrew. I think you might have, built them up too much.
I know we've been in this rodeo a long time, so I appreciate you continuing to invest with us.
Well, good evening, everybody, and it's a pleasure to meet you guys virtually. Usually we do these with Hebrew, and we're in person, and we've been doing it with this Hebrew and his organization for the last few years now. And so what we try to do is, this session is for you guys. Generally, when we go in and we're doing these sessions, we try to find out, who's in the room. And from there, try to get a level set so we can, provide information. But this whole session is about you guys. You guys have operating businesses. Some of them are at different maturity levels. And so as we go through the information, the way we put this information together, we really focus on best practices, right? And so when you look at what we do, a lot of your companies that I see that are represented here this evening are on the other side of the equation. So we work with a lot of architects and engineers on the front side of projects. And we see these projects before they actually become projects, right? And so there is 2 building and there's 4 building. We provide the information to the owners to build so they can make decisions about, okay, hey, what's our budget? How much is this thing going to cost? Before they come out to the general contractors and actually, put the bids out. And then you guys come in, prepare your bids, and then submit your bids, to the owners. And our job is to make sure that the owner already has a true reflection of what we believe the cost should be, in construction. So if we tell them, hey, you want to build, X school over here at this property location in Tennessee, and we, based on the information we have from your drawings, we think it's going to be $25 million to do. Our validation comes in is when the bids come in and they open them up, and we see numbers that are 20 million, 24 million, 25 million, and that's what we want to see. Now we see somebody at $10 million, he clearly has missed the scope. And so when we do these classes, what we do is we start out, with a exercise to kind of get the mind going, which we call kind of baking a cake. And we give the groups a scope of work, and we say, okay, hey, you guys get together as a team and put together, a bid based on this scope of work. And so it's amazing that when you see the bids come back, just how far the ranges are in terms of the bid, and everybody's looking at the same information, right? And so you start to think about that in a larger context that, when you're actually, doing these projects, it's actually 2 parts of it. It's estimating, the work, and then it's bidding it. And those are 2 different skills that need to be employed in your business. And so what we try to do is go through some high level stuff. And like Hebrew said, after the presentation, they'll share the documents with you. But what we tried to do was put enough best practices in here that you could look at your organization and then say, hey, how can I incorporate some of this, there in our in your business? And also we've been able to connect with, people after the class and, talk them through different challenges and things that they may have had that they may be looking at going through their business. So our goal is, what we talk about is really risk reduction or risk mitigation. We don't have a dog in the fight when we're looking at projects. We're just going to tell you, hey, this is what it is. This is what it is. And you can try to go get it cheaper. But 9 times out of 10, it's going to come in where we tell you the number is at. So in this exercise, we sent out some information to you guys to say, okay, hey, let's do the scope of work. Here's an RFP. Let's bake a cake, and let's see where the bids come in at. So next slide, please. And so from the people that sent back the information, these are all the bids that we got. It goes from $36 to $294, right? And so when you think about the nature of construction, a lot of times we're looking at it from the standpoint of how do we know where the price should be? And so what we do, we've already told the owner where the price should be. So when these numbers come in, we'll know that, hey, the $36 one is not going to cut it. The $294 one, he either doesn't want the job or he's way out of scope, giving just way too much thought into it. But the goal is to kind of look at you and look at these projects and say, hey, when you're presented with the same information, what you're bidding is right. This is what your bid is, what you think you can do the job for. A lot of times we found in businesses, especially, minority businesses, that a lot of times they may sign up for work and they're doing more work for less money because they clearly did not identify the scope of the work. And I don't know how it goes for you guys. Like once you lock in to a price, you have to deliver, for that price that you guys lock in on. And so what we try to do is, again, try to come from our perspective and say how we put these numbers together and what we're looking at, and then try to give some of that information to you guys again. So hopefully it helps. But as we go through, again, this night is for you guys. So as we go through and Louis goes through his presentation, Louis has a tremendous amount of experience. I mean, anything you think about building, he's pretty much done. A lot of different projects. And we've done work down in your state in Tennessee. We've done work across the country. Louis has worked not only domestically, but internationally as well. And right now we're doing, for the last year, we've been doing a lot of little projects down in the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos. So that kind of shows you that, we step outside of the country in terms of the expertise, but that's the expertise that we bring to the table. So as we go through, you guys have questions as Louis is presenting the information. And based on what I'm hearing from everybody that's in the room, it looks like some of the stuff may be really elementary. And so we probably can skip through that at a very high level. But if we need to drill down a little bit, just let us know. But again, we want to focus on you guys tonight. Really, our goal is try to help your business, try to give you some things, how we look at it on our side, and see if that can help you. And like I said, any questions that you got, definitely, that's what we're here for tonight. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Louis, and we'll get going.
Thank you, Lee, and good evening, everyone. Can we have the next slide, please?
You'll probably go to the next two.
Yeah, it's not this one.
I kind of covered that. Yeah.
Okay, so let me just make a little statement here before going forward. And I have been teaching estimating off and on for those 40 plus years. But every time I've taught before, I was able to walk up and down in the classroom and say hello and, meet everybody and do this, do that. This is the first time I'm doing it online. So please forgive any hiccups that I might go through here. And, let's see how it goes. Basically, estimating is a very broad and deep subject matter in our construction industry. It's also controversial. Just as two architects given the same task will never design the exact same building, no two individuals or enterprises will provide the same dollar amount on the same line item, much less all the line items in an estimate. I'll be articulating this subject in the industry that will have other opinions and options as well, that are just as valid as those in this presentation. There is no absolute in estimating. What the estimator must provide, and this webinar hopes to help you along the way to that end, is structure and auditability of the numbers when you provide them, so that documentation can be made and changes identified at any time in the future. Okay, so the object of the class: to introduce and discuss the basic concepts, definition, and processes in developing the construction estimate, discuss basic steps required to develop, organize, and submit a responsive bid or offer, and use this information from the class to estimate and develop competitive bids for simple or non-traditional work. I think that you will be getting the slide presentation afterwards, right? Is that how it goes?
Yeah, I think so, Louis.
Yes. Okay, good. Next slide, please. So I understand how these things go. Sometimes you're glazed over while going through something like this because you're getting a lot of information thrown at you, and I'll be just talking about what you actually see on the screen, and you might even say, well, just send it to me, I'll read it. But sometimes just hearing it does make a difference, and then afterwards you can go through the document. I believe the document is put together in such a way where that it can and will answer a lot of questions for some people. For some people, it won't answer any questions. But for some people, it will answer a lot of questions. At least I hope so, and it has in the past. Next, please. Okay. What is an estimate? These are the first topics we're going to be going through. What is an estimate? What is estimating? And when is an estimate necessary? Why is an estimate necessary? What is scope? That 5-letter word. The end all of it all. Was it in the scope or was it not in the scope? Or what's my opinion of the scope compared to your opinion of the scope? And then types of estimate. Next. So what is an estimate? Documented determination or evaluation of resources necessary to complete a predetermined task. In our daily lives, we're all estimators. We're constantly estimating every part of our life. How much grocery we're gonna buy, how long is it gonna take us to get from here to here. So every part of our life is an estimating process, and sometimes we're on, sometimes we're off, and there's no difference in the construction industry. The resources that we need are 5 of them mainly, and probably a few others as well. It's obvious what they are: labor, materials, time, and equipment. I see that there are a couple of people in here who are in actually the equipment business. I remember one gentleman said he was in the paint business. That's a tremendous business, I think, being in the industrial and heavy civil paint business. And then there's also money. Money is a resource, and as we know, we can't get to some of those better opportunities because we don't quote unquote qualify, and so we have to make sure that the money part of the equation is there as well. Webster's definition, for a noun, it's a calculation, and for a verb, it's a guess. And to be honest, all good estimates always combine both of those. Next, please. What is estimating? Estimating is the prediction of the quantity and cost of resources needed to accomplish an active or create an asset, an activity or create an asset. And that's the definition given by America's largest estimating organization, the AACE. And estimating is the process of taking the whole and breaking it down into parts and assigning cost to the parts. The sum of the parts then total when totaled, determines the cost of the whole. It's really that simple, but takes a lot of other pieces to put it together. There are 4 basic steps. Break the project down into sub-assemblies, processes, or activities. Assign a cost to the sub-assemblies, processes, or activity, which is the pricing. Sum the cost of those sub-assemblies, processes, or activities. You get the drift. And then review and analyze the results. And in the estimating business, you will never stop changing the number. You just keep on analyzing. Lord, I could done that differently, or I think that sub is giving me price too high. Let me get another price. Things of that nature. It's a dynamic document and exercise. When's an estimate necessary? Well, you always need an estimate to develop budgets. And as Lee mentioned earlier, that's the side of the business that we are primarily in. Of course, most of or all of you that are on this call are on the side of having to make business decisions with these estimates. We fully understand that, and estimating is estimating. It's slightly different when you're doing it to set budgets compared to when you're doing it to put your house on the line as the collateral for getting the money. But it still requires the same structure and process. It determines the cost of labor, equipment, material, and even the cost of money, because you must put the interest charges in there too. It helps you to determine time, wins bids and secure work, determines the cost of changes to that work as the work is going on, and determine the value of a defined scope and the resources that are required to produce that scope. Next, please. Next. Why is an estimate necessary? Well, we repeated it to determine cost, to track cost, and to track and determine profitability. If I don't know how much it's costing me, I'm never going to know how much I'm making. And if I don't know how much I'm making, I'm not running a good business because I don't know if I'm viable or not. It helps, the estimate is there also to help in the tracking of your time and schedule on the job, track your material purchases, and to validate claims, whether during or after the termination or of the task or project that you're on, or subcontract that you're on. Next, please. Scope, that 5-letter word again. The defined limit of work that is to be considered. That's simply, it's the scope. But it's a lot more than that. It is what gets a lot of people in trouble, not understanding the scope or not realizing there's more to the scope. Or in a few cases, over projecting the scope. Should include the determination of time, how long it's going to take, because that, of course, helps to calculate those costs that are not actually left behind, i.e. the concrete and the carpet and the roofing is left behind, but the management costs and the supervision costs are based on the time it took you to get things in place. Constructability, can the project be built per the contract documents? And what are the risks of that task? I hear there's a roofer on here, there's a difference in how you price flat roofs as against pitch roofs, and the size of the roof, or the slope of the roof, or the kind of materials going on the roof. You have to determine what the risks are when you're putting your roof bids together. All right, next, please. So what are the types of estimates? The first one really is range estimating. I got to get over to grandma's house. It's going to take me 35 to 45 minutes. That's a range estimate. Didn't say 35 minutes, said 35 to 45 minutes. The same thing in estimating. It should cost somewhere between $350,000 and $420,000. Order of magnitude, which is, Did one of those 2 years ago. It was about $45,000, little escalation. Should be about $52,000 this time. Unit cost. Last time we built one of those, it was $325 a square foot. So, you know, we should be in that range or a little bit more, or something might have happened in the market and you go down a little bit. Parametric estimating, which is to take the use of the facility and to determine what the cost will be and projected in the future. I'm doing a school, an elementary school, 15 classrooms, X dollars a classroom, or 780 kids, X dollars per child. So there are those parametrics also that can be used to do estimates depending on the industry you're in or the building type you're dealing with. Parking deck, you could say how many cars, you know, how many floors, things of that nature. Elemental or systems estimates, trade estimates, and hard bid estimates. So let's continue. Next. The type of estimates, you know, the concepts, which are, you know, plus or minus 10% at the start. It's really based on an idea, a lot of which we do at PCS. Schematics at 35% design development, you know, which is when, you know, hardcore design and engineering and design decisions have been made, and construction documents 100%. And over to the right, you'll see the different approaches to doing estimates at each of those stages in the process. And the hard bid one is when you have 100% documents. However, in the industry these days, you know, given the type of contractual vehicles that are used, sometimes you're required to give hard bids at 30%. And therein lies more risk, and therefore you have to decide how you're going to deal with that risk, especially in the design build industry. Next, please.
Hey, Louis, before you go to that point, because I think somebody on here was talking about getting into design build.
Yes, right.
What we were talking about just then, where you're about 35% or 40% of the drawings and having to give numbers there. And what the industry is usually doing is that's risk, a lot of risk in a design build, you know. So I just wanted to kind of talk about that just a little bit, because somebody is actually thinking about that model and getting into that model of design.
Yeah, it's a two-edged sword. It's good for the owner because it gets the contractor engaged earlier, and therefore it reduces the time to get his project completed, his or her project completed. But at the same time, the contractor is taking on more risk, which means that he's going to be, you know, he's going to be covering that risk somewhere along the way. Okay, types of estimate. The range estimates, as we talked about before, you give high and low values, i.e. 35 to 45 minutes to get to grandma's. It's a good first step. It gives more information about the nature of the task. The difference gives an indication of the uncertainty of the risk, i.e. there's a 10-minute risk there between 35 and 45 minutes to get to grandma. But then again, something might happen. There might be an accident on the road along the way that backs traffic up, and I've gone to an hour and a half. And the same thing can be said about construction. I might meet some rock down there that we never anticipated, and somebody's going to have to pay for it. And who pays for it is going to depend on how those documents were written. The percentage, continue. Next one, please. Order of magnitude. Next. Order of magnitude is based on an assumed scope and assumed quantities, i.e. it's going to be a parking deck, 3 floors for 280 cars. We can give you a good order of magnitude, something like that, if we know where it is. And it's based on unit prices applied to the assumed quantities. Next, please, unit costs. Unit cost estimates. This type of estimate is used in the very preliminary stages of a project, where the only known information is the number of units that are being planned. It's reliability based on historical data. So this is where you go to the last parking deck that was built, to do some research on parking decks and find out what parking decks of that. And you're never going to find exactly what you did before unless you did it. You might be in an industry where you do repeat the same type of projects and scope. But if you're a general contractor, you might not have that, and therefore some research will be needed. It must be adjusted for specific conditions, locations, codes and ordinances, site conditions, geometry, architecture, escalation, and things of that nature. But it's a lot of what budgets are built on before owners go to designers to get things done. 4, please, parametric. Next. Slide, next slide. Okay, the parametric estimate can be done with or in conjunction with unit costs. Is based on historical information with the predetermined values. And the estimate is driven by a parametric value. Again, I think I mentioned before, if I'm doing a school, I might be able to get a parametric value per student, or if a hospital, a parametric value per number of rooms or number of beds, things of that nature. Next, number 5 slide. Okay. Elemental or systems estimates. This is basically where we break down the elements of the building or the construction, because obviously not everybody here is dealing with buildings. Some people are, I think, are dealing with horizontal construction. And elements or building systems estimate used primarily as a design tool. What do I mean by that? Architects love to spend lots of money on exterior walls because that's what people see. And so you might want to estimate that part of the building based on just the system of the exterior wall alone. And then the interior parts of the buildings will be based on other system parameters. To assist the designers in keeping track of the cost of various building parts, i.e. how much is the plumbing cost going to be? It's going to be based on a per fixture. How much is the ceiling going to be? It's going to be square foot of ceilings. How much is the parking lot going to be? It's going to be square yards of pavement and linear foot of curb, things of that nature. The design or building is broken down into elements of functional pieces and the estimate is prepared accordingly, just as I just outlined there. It's a preferred type of cost estimate for loading schedules. That's because schedules are driven by the functions that are being put together. When was the slab poured? When was the foundation wall put in? And so if an estimate is organized using that style, then the schedule can be built around that much easier than having it done, say, in a master format or a CSI format, which is just material trades. All right, next, please, trade estimates. Okay, so the estimate is prepared according to the trade required, i.e., just as I mentioned, the various system trades, masonry, carpentry, but as you can tell, there's masonry in the exterior wall, but there's also masonry on the site, or there's masonry making up the manholes, or there's masonry making up in some of the interior partitions, things of that nature. There's concrete in the foundations and concrete in the slab on grade, and there's concrete as a topping on the elevated floors. So this is where you just estimate just the concrete, you just estimate the carpentry, you just estimate the roofing materials, which is Division 7, thermal protection, and things of that nature. This is a more traditional form of estimating and is recognized by the industry as standard. And that's because the industry provides the service to the owners through the trade process. You don't have exterior wall contractors. You have masonry contractors, or you have precast concrete contractors, and so on. The estimate is prepared using industry standard specifications using the Industry Standard Specifications Institute, or CSI codes or numbers. And of course, traditionally there were the 16 division CSI code structure. And I think it's up to like, they've had to expand that because of technology and just mechanical and electrical systems and civil elements of a building being so much broader over the last 40, 50 years than it was before. They've now expanded that to like 45 or 44 different code sections. 48, yeah. I'm an old 16 division CSI guy. I can never remember anything past division 16. I have to look it up. Okay, number 7, please, hard bid. Next slide. Okay, so the hard bid is prepared specifically to win bids, which is what the people on this webinar are interested in. It may involve many parties, such as subcontractors, suppliers, some of whom are on here, to prepare that bid. That's definitely a industry collaborative process when you're putting hard bids together, because nobody provides all of the parts to what is needed. Certainly in this industry, it used to be that way at one time. No, it's never been that way, because nobody provided every single thing. And so it's a collaborative process where everybody's taking their part of the risk, but the guy who's putting the bid, the final bid together, is taking most of, if not all, the risk. It can be lump sum or lump sum based on unit prices, or competitive, and maybe binding. Usually it's binding if you're putting a bid together. So the $39 cake, we better get a good cake for $39 if you're going to win that bid. So make sure that you add everything in there, and or you might decide after seeing where the other bids are to withdraw it, because after you say yes, it is binding and there's a legal document that you're going to have to sign. Okay, so those are the types of estimates. Can you go to the next slide, please? Which is the estimating process. So we can talk about the principles of estimating, estimating tools and resources, and how to set up an estimate. Okay, next, please. All right, so the principles of estimating, these are the elements underneath it. You must have a defined scope. Even if the scope has not been given to you, make sure that you provide what is needed to define that scope as you have decided to price it. It must be organized, structured, must be logical, must be consistent, and it must have accountability. You have to be really a numbers person to put good estimates together. Otherwise, you're going to get lost along the way. Next, please. So must have a defined scope, i.e., usually in this industry, you get design documents, which include drawings, specifications, and a contract. And it's not just the drawings and specs, guys. Read the contract. And we're going to get into that a little bit too, yeah. Know your existing conditions. If you're bidding within your geographic comfort area, visit the site, visit the building, visit that piece of land, whatever it is. Don't put your estimates together not having gone to the property and the surrounding areas. Going to need a schedule and change orders or directives. Okay, next, please. must be organized. You've got to organize the work into manageable pieces, i.e. those elements we talked about before, estimate them in groups that can be put together in a sensible fashion. Some structures that are used in the industry are, as we mentioned, CSI, unit format, which is a functional breakdown that is used in many government by many federal government agencies, such as the GSA. I think they were the ones that actually came up with this some 60, 70 years ago. Trade formats, i.e. the masonry, the carpentry, the gypboard, the plumbing, the fire protections, those trades, things of that nature. And sometimes trade and unit format are almost the same thing, but a little different. And respond to the bid documents. Make sure you're looking through those documents nonstop. Next one, please. Logical. Produce the estimate in the same order that the work will be performed. This is so important because we're all natures of process. And if you're not putting together the estimate the way you're gonna think you're gonna build it, or the estimator, even if the estimator is not the one building it, that person needs to know how the building is put together and how it will be coming out of the ground, or how the pipe is going to be going into the ground, or how the pavement is going to be laid. What are the steps? You know, all of us as consumers, we see the pavement, but we don't know all of that work that was done just to get that asphalt there. You know, the asphalt usually is the easiest part of it. And so the person putting the estimate together got to know all of those pieces and how they're put together. Concentrate on the big ticket items. You know, it's the old 80-20-80 or 80-20 rule, where, you know, 80% of the price of the cost is in 20% of the information. Next, please. Be consistent, and make that way it makes it easy to find and correct errors. If you're doing the estimate in the same structure all the time, you will know over time where things ought to be and how much they should cost, and therefore it reduces your chance of making errors. Accountability. All quantities must have a source document. It does not matter how you came up with that number. Make sure that 3 years from now, you can go back and say, yes, here, and here, this is where that quantity of 345 square feet came from on that date, on that document. So make sure you have a source document, and all information must be substantiated. Even if it's something that you're assuming, write it down so that you'll be able to go back and prove where that information came from. Okay, so those are the principles of estimating. Next, please. Estimating tools and resources. We're going to go through the scope documents, the software, hardware, pricing data, and knowledge and experience. Okay, so next one, please. All right, scope documents, drawings with alternates and options, because sometimes the owner would like to spend more money, but not sure if would like to get more scope, but not sure if the money will cover it. And so it puts in some options in the design documents. Read your specifications, read your contracts, and read all the addendas that come out during your bidding period. Do not let anything go unchecked. Next, please. Software. You know, the plus side of the 40 years for me, we never had anything called software. Everything was, I now look back and wonder how we got through it. But now there is software. if you're doing quantity takeoff, and invest in it. Invest in something that you can use to document your quantities with. And in today's electronic world, there's no excuse to not have that as part of your business process. Some of the ones that we know of out there, the big one in the industry is on-screen takeoff, or OST. There's Bluebeam, which we use a lot. Even PDF has a takeoff module in it, but that's really, you really need something a little heavier than that. Autodesk does quantity extraction from CAD files. Plan Swift, e-takeoff. Insight does earthwork and civil quantity development and generation. Whatever it is, and there's a lot more than this. This is just a few. They've exploded over the last 15 to 20 years. But make sure you invest in one. Processing software. The #1 estimating software in the country and in the world is the 6th item down there, or 7th, 6th. It's Excel. Spreadsheets, more estimates are done on spreadsheet, probably 10,000 times more estimates are done on spreadsheets than anything else. However, for big organizations, or organizations that want to be consistent, spreadsheets are a good start, but they're not recommended. You need to invest in a piece of software. The 3rd one down there, MC Squared. Well, that company has been taken over now by another company, but that came right out of Memphis, Tennessee. There was an old estimating company there for years and years, and had a great software tool. Timberline, or from a company called Sage, is one that is probably used by most general contractors around the country. I'm not sure if Win Estimator still exists anymore. Second one from the bottom is one that I had a lot of experience with. I've been part of the team that put it together. It's called Success, still use it. And then Hard Dollar is a company out of Texas that deals primarily with heavy civil work. And once again, there are lots more, but invest in both of these things. And some of the estimating software come with their own takeoff processes too, but make sure you invest in something. It's just the right way to go. Next, please. Hardware. Don't need to talk about that. We're all in the computer age now, so you're gonna have good hardware, good laptops. I'm amazed what they can do nowadays. Pricing data. So where do you get your prices from? That's always important. And the #1 pricing name in the industry is a company called RS Means. However, they're not RS Means anymore, right, Lee?
The Gordian Group, yeah.
The Gordian Group, right. They now own RS Means, which is probably one of the most well-known. RS Means is one of the most well-known brand names in the entire construction industry, because it's been around since 1958 and produced pricing books every year since then. But it's now owned by a company called the Gordian Group, and they still produce the books both electronically and on paper. The next best thing is your previous projects. As you go on, make sure that you are, and that's one of the reasons why you must do all the things I just mentioned earlier on with regards to takeoff software and pricing software. That way you can start building strong database of the projects you've done in the past, and then use them in the future. There's going to come a time when eventually you don't even need to look on do that takeoff to know what that project's going to cost, because you have such a wealth of and backlog of data on projects that you've done before. You don't want to spend the money creating it and not being able to use it in the future. Corporate data and knowledge, i.e. that's usually the guys that's been around a long time. They carry a lot of information in their heads. Trade services. Nowadays you can get a lot of information on the internet from the different trades or suppliers of systems, materials, and services. Hardware and material suppliers, a couple of which are on the phone here. They're a good source of getting information, and they want to know where the projects are too. So reach out to them so that they can help you, and by doing that, get leads. Equipment suppliers, of course, equipment is usually based on time, not on scope area or scope quantity. So make sure you understand how to estimate the time of an activity so that you can get rental quotes for your equipment from your equipment supplier. Subcontractors, of course, as mentioned before, sometimes there's an element, I'm not a plumber, so let me get a contractor, a plumbing contractor to give me a price on the plumbing. I would suggest, yes, you definitely have to do that if you're not going to do the plumbing, but make sure you have some understanding of what the plumbing should be. Okay, so, or somebody in your organization. The Department of Labor for getting labor rates. If you're doing government work, you're going to usually standardize on the Davis-Bacon in that particular zip code or county. A lot of internet research, but there's nothing better than your own life experience at what you've been doing. And if you start building that experience in 2, 3, 4 years, you'll be amazed as to how much information you've been able to develop over that short period of time, and then implement into new projects as they come up, or new opportunities as they come up. Next one. Let me see now. 1, 2, 3. Well, yeah, I guess there's there's estimator experience. Oh, then there's estimator experience. Oh, I forgot to mention estimator experience. I guess you get the drift. Just as the last statement on the previous slide, there's just nothing beats experience in this. And the experience is corporate wide. If you're running a general contractor, those guys out on the site have a lot of knowledge that you can always use to help you put your estimates together. You might not use that price that they give you, but at least it gives you some kind of guide and lets you know how involved they are. They know a lot more than we sometimes extract from them. So don't leave them out. Develop corporate knowledge over time. Train others. That is so important in this business, especially for small organizations. I see too many small businesses at the stage now where the original entrepreneur is eventually going to close down the business because he didn't train somebody to continue it for him or her. So train our young people, please. Well, there it is, train young interns. They might not stay with you, but they'll be valuable to the industry in the long run and to themselves. Okay, so that's the end of that group. Next, please. So setting up the estimate. And these are the topics we're going to be covering: understanding the scope of the work, defining the work, understanding the prevailing conditions, determine the construction sequence, perform your quantity takeoff, price it, and then analyze the results, and then analyze the results again, and go to bed and get up next morning and analyze them yet again. It's that kind of business. Next, please. So, understanding the scope of the work. Read and examine the documents. Please don't gloss over them. Read and examine the documents. Look for gaps in the information, because architects and engineers are not perfect people. And sometimes we find a lot of gaps when we're just doing estimates. And we tell our customers, usually an architect or an engineer, listen, this and this can't work, or you left this piece out. And they say, oops, forgot that. Let's get that corrected on the drawings. Situations like that can become opportunity for a contractor. Look for advantages that you have. Generate questions. Always have questions to ask the engineer. Put them on their toes, or the architect, and prepare a list of inclusions and exclusions. It's very important to do this so that when you're putting your bid together, you'll know and be able to tell your client what you've included and what you don't include. Okay, the furniture layout is on the drawing. I did not include furniture. Somewhere in his documents, he might have a statement that says the furniture is included and you didn't include them. And if you didn't state that the furniture is not included and go sign a document, whoops, you just ate up all, if not more than your profit. Next, please.
Hey, Lloyd, before you move on, one of the things you got there, and we talk about a lot, is look for gaps in the information, right?
Yep.
So, you know, one of the things that when I first got into this business, Lou's been doing this for 40 some odd years. One of the guys that works with us tell us, he said, Lee, a general contractor's job is to price the documents the way they are out on the street, right? And so at the end of the day, everybody is pricing their numbers based off what they see, right? But that gaps in information that exists that, you know, hey, it's not in the drawings, but it's got to be done. And that's where your change orders come through. And that's what they would, you know, a guy told me, said, Lee, one of the guys that work with it said, that's where the general contractors usually make their money at, gaps in the information. But when you price these things out, like I said, you know, you're pricing it out based on how they delivered it. That's how everybody's going to price it out. But that's gaps in information. That is the one most critical area that you have to know where the gaps are, and then have that in reserve so that, you know, when you get to the point of, you know, negotiating or whatever you're doing, you know where those gaps are at.
I just turned in an estimate today that have that exact situation, but this is from the owner's side. So it's a budget situation where my electrical estimate, there's a part of the scope that was on the documents, and then the owner, the designer, told us to remove it from our estimate. They're not going to do that part. Discussed it with my electrical estimator, and she said, Louis, they can't do the job if they don't do that part. Find a way to put that number in the estimate, code it under a different code so that they can't see it, but make sure you put it in there. And I found a way to put that money back in the estimate, because in the long run, they're going to find out later on that, oops, we should have really included that. And how much money we got in there for it? Well, we didn't exclude it. We did not follow your instruction, and here's the money. So it's an important thing. Okay.
Hey, question.
Yeah.
Question is Marcus, but you also can clarify your bid as well, correct?
Yes. Right, and that's part of the inclusion and exclusions. Yes.
Right, because I've noticed also that even though you have a spec for the project, you got to be careful that, because the architect might have put a note on the print.
Yes.
On the blueprint. Okay, you got to be careful of that, because if that's the case, then I think the rule is that he put the note on the blueprint, then that's the rules, even though you have specifications.
Right, or vice versa. He might have put something in the specification that really should have been on the drawings, and if you didn't read the specifications, you know, there it is. I go back to my furniture example. The drawings have furniture on them, but you know, but you're not expecting the furniture to be part of the scope, or that there's no furniture on there, but there's a part of the spec that mentions furnishings. Okay. Okay, thanks, Marcus. Next. So we must define the scope of the work. When the documents provided are incomplete, assumptions are used to fill the gaps, okay? So you didn't give me any floor finishes, or you didn't give me a door schedule, or you didn't tell me what kind of concrete pipe it's gonna be, or you didn't tell me what kind of paint to use on this bridge. So you've got to fill that gap in and document what your assumption was for information that you could not find. But then again, you must provide that scope. You must provide it so that the scope of what your pricing is complete. Prepare the narrative to supplement your estimate. Again, documentation. The narrative should fill the gaps in the information provided and be used to facilitate changes to the estimate. I.e., if you just as my example with my electrical estimator, I can go back to my designer and use that information to justify why I had to change the estimate. Prepare a list of inclusions and exclusions, as we mentioned before. All right, next. Understand the prevailing conditions, i.e. what are the time constraints? You know, you can't work at night, or you can only work at night. There's some projects like that. Is the project local? Or you know, that's a simple geographic question. What's the access to the site? And that's so critical sometimes in terms of movement and time and motion in terms of getting your work done. Make sure you have good access to your site, or if there is not good access, at least you can accommodate it by adding things into your numbers that will give you the money you need to overcome that poor access to the site. Governing bodies, you know, am I doing a publicly funded project? And if so, you know, what are the various entities involved? Sometimes you'll have all 3 or 4 of those listed there. It's partially federally funded. States got some money in it too, but it's the customer is a county, and the unions are strong in that area. So make sure you understand who are the players in the game, and what impact they will have on your bid. And make sure you understand if there are liquidated damages in your contract, because it could determine whether or not you bid the thing, because you don't want to have liquidated damages charges, and you're not prepared to withstand them. Next, please. Determine the construction sequence, access to the work, phasing. Do you have to partially deliver some of the project? I.e., if I'm doing a road job, the road markings. Again, I keep going back to the painter because I'm so glad to have somebody like that in this group. I'm sure you've had this experience where sometimes you have to go on the job 3 or 4 times because of the phasing and the delivery of the different parts of the road that's being done. And so you need to know whether or not you have to mobilize and demobilize and remobilize many times to finish the project. What are the long lead purchases that are needed for this job? A classic long lead purchase comes in things like structural steel or heavy mechanical electrical systems. You know, it's not going to be installed until 75% of the time through. But if you don't get it out there and ordered from now, you won't make your schedule. Know the construction materials that you're using and the method of framing, i.e., am I doing a concrete job or a steel job or a wood job? And where's my staging area? As a general contractor, you can't do anything without staging it. And it's crucial that you understand how you're going to manage your staging area, where it is in proximity to your project. On most government projects, they will provide you with the location of the staging area if they're providing it. And if they're not providing it, you need to find your own, pay the money for it if you don't already own it, which is very unusual, and make sure that cost is in your bid or in your estimate. Next, please. Of course, you've got to then provide. You've now got to measure the scope, and the best thing is to assign the work. Make a list of all the items that are to be measured. You know, we're going to measure item A, B, C, D. That's internal. Item C or item E, F, or whatever is a subcontract item, but I'm going to still do a parametric evaluation of it. A list should be compiled in the construction sequence, i.e., okay, we're going to clear the property. No, we're going to demolish the existing building. That's the first thing. We're going to clear and grub the surrounding property. We're going to grade it. We're going to prepare the pad. We're going to dig the foundations. make sure that you do it in the sequence of the activities. Use the specifications as a guide. You listen, a lot of us just look at the drawings and think that that's everything. No, read the specifications in conjunction with reviewing the drawings. A lot of times people miss things because those two things work hand in hand. Complete one item before continuing to the next. Don't start on the foundations and then jump to the finishes. It's just, our brains don't generally work like that. Maybe some brains do, mine certainly doesn't. Get yourself through that particular activity first before doing another one, okay? Or get others to help you that are responsible for different activities. And mark and identify the completed items so you can track where you are and make sure you can make your bid date. Next, please.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
This is Marcus again.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I found out, as a paint contractor, I was a paint contractor for 30 years. A lot of times I know that sometimes people are so busy, they'll take one specification for paint and just stick it to the next project.
Yes.
So you have to read the specs, because one of them items, even though it looks small, might be $100,000 difference.
Yeah.
So sometimes we know that people are busy. That's why you have to read the specs, because you can go back and tell the owner or the contractor who have you been with, it's like, well, you want me to paint, you want me to use some regular primer to block fill a brick? No, I have to use some block filler.
Yes, right. And there's a difference in
every
that
primer can't go on every surface.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You have to identify, you can't just put primer on just anything.
Yes.
Just wanted to point that out because you was talking about the specifications.
Right. Again, just as you said, they go hand in hand. Don't just spend time measuring the paint. Make sure you read the paint specs. So, okay. Again, as mentioned before, the various pricing documents out there. But folks, although there are pricing documents out there, they're simply a guide. Okay. Eggs are not the same at Walmart as they are at Kroger, they are at the corner, the gas station down the road. Okay. But by going to any or all three of those, you'll understand what the range is for a dozen eggs, okay, at a given point. So pricing data is good, but it is just a guide. All pricing is guides for you to make decisions with. Of course, the most important part is corporate data that you've built up over time.
Nikki has a question.
Yes.
Nikki has a question.
Yes, please go ahead.
Oh, actually, I did put it in a chat room. So we were talking about gaps. So if you added the gap, and then your estimate ended up, so you're the thorough one, but then your estimates ended up being higher. Could that, cause you to lose the bid?
Of course, it could cause you to lose the bid. But there's an opportunity there for you to then bring that to the attention of the owner, that your bid is based on something, or you make sure that you identify in your bid, right on the front of your bid, that there is a gap in the documents and your bid does not or does include the gap. I mean, cover yourself by documenting it in the response that you're giving in your bid. But you can't go and put a bid together, know that there's a gap, not price the gap, and win the bid because of that gap, and expect the customer to pay for it. Okay, so you simply have to document everything. Documentation is everything in this construction business, especially as it pertains to estimating and bidding. Okay, next, please. And finally, in this section, analyze the results. Is the final cost reasonable? And for that, you're going to need to go back and see where the industry has put this kind of scope And there's lots of bid information out on the internet to see where other projects have been awarded. How does the final cost compare to the historic data? If you've been in this industry a while and you've been pricing the same thing, what's it compared to what you've did 2-3 years ago? And if it's wildly different, find out why it's different before you put your numbers in. Your difference might have been a mathematical error. You never know. It happens to all of us, okay? Is the final cost reflective of the current market conditions, i.e., if you're in the trucking business and there's a spike in diesel oil costs, that might have been the reason why your price is 8, 10, 15% more than it would have been before, but then you've justified it. You didn't miss it. Are my subquotes correct? And this is where I suggested earlier on, if you're not a plumbing contractor, at least have an idea how much per unit your fixtures should be, or how much a yard the concrete should be if you're getting a sub to do your concrete work, and you're not doing it yourself. Because if your subs are not correct or accurate, they're going to have an impact on your bid. And we are now in an industry, I grew up at a time in this business where contractors were true general contractors. They did 80% of the work. Nowadays, there are contractors that do 0% of the work. They are managing contractors. So, it's different now. So you can't take the same old approach. Subs are the entity that drive this industry right now from a pricing point of view. The main subs, of course, are the traditional ones, your mechanical, your electrical, especially mechanical electrical these days with all of the environmental issues and technology. Your masonry, your glass, your drywall, your asphalt, your concrete. Those are the groups that drive the prices in this industry. It's not the prime contractor anymore. It used to be. Is my final cost competitive? You have to understand your industry to know that. And if you're not competitive, should I withdraw, or should I at least put a number in so that customer don't ignore me the next time they've got an opportunity? And can I win the bid? And that's where the big decisions come in. So that ends, I think, the section on the estimating side. And the next section is going to be on bidding. I think we're going to take a 5-minute break. And is that right?
That is correct.
We're going to take a 5-minute break, and I'll be back in exactly 5 minutes, and we'll take it up from there.
Okay. See you guys in 5 minutes.
We got 30 minutes left, so we're going to have to speed up a little bit. All right, so is that, are we back? Pretty much. Louis, you there?
Yes, I am.
We're ready.
Okay.
Great.
All right, so we got about 30 minutes left here. And I know there's some questions that have come in. So the next section Louis is going to go over is bidding. We might kind of move through that a little bit more of a hurried pace so we can get you guys questions in and give some time for discussion with that, because we don't want to hold you too long. I know it's going to be 10 o'clock our time, so 9 o'clock your time, and so we want to be respectful of everybody's time. And but we definitely want to make sure that we jump into some questions that you guys may have in this session. Again, this session is about you guys, so as we've been going through, you guys have been asking some questions, and that's really what we like, so we can answer real life questions for you, right? And so, again, we just want to, given our time constraints here, go through some of this material, but then really, give some time to you guys can jump in and ask questions.
And I will attempt to answer all the questions, but I don't promise I'll be able to answer all the questions. Okay, some of them I might have to follow up on. Okay. So we ready? So bidding, we just went through estimating, and now we've got to deal with bidding. Excuse me. Okay, next please. So we're going to go over what is a bid, the difference between a bid and an estimate, bid preparation and submittal, bid documents, making the decision, because after all of this is a decision at the bottom, at the end of it. Understanding the requirements and understanding the obligations of that contractor or subcontractor. Look at general conditions, special conditions, and site conditions. Okay, next please. Understand the contractor's obligations, the delays, liquidated damages. Yeah, can you go to the next one? I think. Yeah, these are all the sub elements that we're going to be covering. So since we need to move through this fast, can you? Yeah. What is a bid? Providing the owner or his or her representative a detailed response, i.e. bid, to a request for the purpose of selecting an enterprise or an individual based on the rules and requirements of the owner. Remember that it's the owner's rules and requirements, not yours, not the bidder, to provide a service and or product based on the specific scope of the work, i.e. the bidding documents. And if the bidding documents are not complete, that's where you need to ad lib and put what you have in and what you don't have in your remarks. Next, please. The difference between a bid and an estimate. The bid is a monetary value with conditions charged for a product, process, or service. The determination of a bid is a business decision, i.e. you could estimate from here until, as my grandmother would say, kingdom come. At the end of the day, it's a business decision. It is related to, but is separate from the development of the estimate. Okay, so the estimate took 90% of the effort, right? The bid part is only 10%, but it's only the estimate is still only a part of the bid. It is imperative that the estimate is accurate in order to facilitate a sound bidding decision. Okay, next please. Bid preparation. Read and study all the documents. Prepare responsibility list. Who, what, where, when, how should be in that too. Okay. Again, it's going to be organized and structured. Even if you're the only one doing everything, right? And I know that some individual entrepreneurs, they've got to carry the weight of everything. But at least even within yourself, you're the who, the what, the where, and the when. Make sure that you still have that organized, even if it's a single person. Remember to apply for your bid bond if one's required. Identify other required supporting documents. Identify the scope of work. Again, if you don't know, if you don't have a document on what you're supposed to be doing, how are you going to be able to measure it? You can't quantify it if it's not documented. Solicit vendors, suppliers, and subcontractors. Again, you know, we're no longer in the era of contractor does everything. Although, you know, specialty subcontractors, they might, and all you have to do is buy materials, or they might be labor contractors. Okay, there is such a specialty out there as well. And in that case, you wouldn't have to get.
One important thing, in Hebrew, you might could speak to this. I think you did a whole class on bonding. Yeah, probably did a class on bonding. Early on in our business life, we worked with a small general contractor that was going after some DOT work, and it's about $2 million or something, you know, project, and you helped him with his estimate and all of those stuff. And at the end of the day, he couldn't get a bond for the thing, you know, and it's like all that effort, you know, and then can't get the bond. So it's like, you know, I'm not sure how you make these business decisions, but that's one of the first things I would want to know. If like I'm going to work, I'm gonna be able to get a bond for the work.
Yeah, it doesn't make
sense. Class. You're exactly right. That's the purpose of the class. Exactly right.
Then, of course, you have to prepare your cost estimate. Make sure you prepare the construction schedule. Even if you're just the small contractor just doing the curb and gutter, make sure you have your own internal schedule based on the documents you have and the information you've been given by your prime contractor as to when you're coming on site. Have it documented on paper in some kind of Gantt chart, you know, which is some kind of table. You know, horizontal line is time or is activity, and vertical line is time, so that you can justify what your price is based on, and also have that as part of your backup to prove to those if they're in charge, if there are conflicts later on. Prepare and lay out the site utilization plan if you're the prime contractor, so that you can know before starting who's going to be where and when things have to be moved to accommodate the work. Manage and incorporate RFIs and addendums. Yes, changes are going to happen. There's no project that doesn't start with change, okay? And so you have to put in place a system to manage that change, so that at the end of the day, you know how much was added and how much was removed, so that you can claim your just amount for your efforts. Next, please. The bid documents. What are the bid requirements? What are the contractual requirements? And the difference there is they want you to put your numbers together in a specific way. If you're doing DOT work, for instance, you might have to fill out a bid schedule or a pay item schedule. The contractual requirements are the terms and conditions under which the government or the owner entity is going to engage you. The technical specifications is telling you how the work must be done and what the quality of the work must be. The drawings is the physical and visual representation of that scope, and also other documents, addendums, letters, memos, and notices issued by the owner. Next, please. Okay, making the decision to bid or not to bid. I wonder why that is grayed out there. That should be big, bold red. Okay, does the opportunity fall within the boundaries of the business plan and objectives? I mean, if I've been a plumber for 25 years and I'm now bidding on roofing, I mean, it doesn't quite make my objectives and plans here, you know, so make sure you have a sound reason for making that change. Develop a decision matrix. I'm not going to go into decision matrices. You can find out how that is put together on the internet or somewhere like that. But it's a good tool for you to use to numerically come up with decisions go or no go. Know your customer. I mean, is this customer a known entity? Do they pay on time? Are they famous for changing stuff and arguing with their service and construction provider? What are the risks associated? Have I got to do this in the middle of December, January, and February when it's cold as heck and there's no protection for my workers? Things of that nature. So I have to provide heating or maybe even warm clothes. Read the solicitation, and then maybe you want to read it again, and then have somebody else read it, okay? Because we all miss things. Evaluate your financial resources. As Lee said a while ago, they couldn't get the bond, and it's probably because of financial reason. Make sure that you have what you're going to need, or else you're wasting your time, wasting other people's time, because you're not the only one engaged in putting these bids together. Decide whether you're going to decide and understand what your bonding capacity is and your bonding requirements of the project. Whether you're going to bid as a prime, a JV, or a sub. These are all business decisions early on. Determine the number of bidders. That's part of the strategy development. Am I bidding against 4 to 5 people, or am I bidding against 15, 20 people? Back in the economic turndown in 2007, 8, 9, 10, that era, I mean, we were shocked to see the amount of people that were bidding on projects. There were projects that 6 months before might have attracted 3 people, usually 2, and 1 wasn't really interested. We're getting 13, 14 bidders. There was such little work out there. And so if you're seeing that kind of thing, you might wonder, unless you have an inside track or you have knowledge of something, it might not be the best thing for you to waste your resources on that opportunity. Go find something else. Evaluate your human resources, your current workload. Be careful what you wish for, because sometimes we take things on and we're sure we're going to get through, and darn it, that superintendent got sick and I don't have a replacement, you know. So understand your human resources and your workload and commitment. What the market conditions are, you know. I mean, are we saturated with work right now, and I'll not be able to find masons to lay the block, or electricians to run the conduit and wire. And also, what are the opportunities that are out there that I might be missing if I'm taking this on and it's not as profitable as some others that might be coming in. This is a business decision, and notwithstanding how much estimating was done, this list of items here is just as important as that estimate is in determining whether or not you go forward. Next, please. Understanding the big requirements. Review the table of contents. In fact, I know contractors, and that is the only thing some parts of the higher ups in the organization have. They don't care what the things say. They want to know what the table of contents are and make sure somebody is responsible for everything on that table of contents. Verify the index of drawings against the actual set. Sometimes architects, engineers make mistakes. Read the instructions to bidders specifically. Scope of work, forms and the attachments which are to be included with the bids. And the more you do government work, the more you're going to get drowned with all of the different documents that have to be filled out and signed and submitted with your bid. It's not just a number on a single sheet of paper. Make sure you understand that where all those are, and that they're correctly filled out, vetted, checked and double checked and included where necessary. Next, please. Prepare your bid book to include the following. And a bid book in the old-fashioned days, and electronically you can do it differently now, is that got a 3-ring binder, and everything to do with each bid was put in that single, the originals were put in that single binder, or a copy if the original needed to be part of an official submission or document. So you create a bid book. Make sure the solicitation is in there, i.e. what did the owner put out asking for people to bid on this project. Copy of the instructions with all of the points and actions highlighted. Copy all of the blank bid forms, prepare a mock bid envelope, i.e. bid the project before the project is to be bid so that you walk yourself through all these steps. Provide space in your list of items in your bid book for addenda. I've never seen one that didn't have an addenda, especially government projects. Maintain a bound copy of the bid document so that you can always go back to that original that nobody has marked up. Don't mark it, just keep it as a hard copy. And I still believe in hard copies, even if everything is electronic now. Take the money to print out a set of the documents so that you have that on paper somewhere, and read the instructions to the bidders over and over again. You can't read it too many times, trust me. Next, please. Primary actions. Again, it's the primary action items, sorry. You're gonna make sure you have the solicitation documents, attend any pre-bid conferences and site visits. Some projects do have the requirements by the owner, or sometimes it's a requirement, sometimes it's just an option. If it's there, do it, right? You don't want the site to have something about it that you can't be detected on the drawings, and you just because you didn't go, you didn't know. The bid logistics, the time, the locations, the date. You would not believe how many people have missed their bids because they got there 5 minutes late. What are the insurance requirements? What are the bond requirements, both bid bond and performance bond? What alternates are there? What are the work item breakouts for the project? What are the wage requirements? Will you need to work overtime to get the job done? Because the customer might have a very compressed schedule and a drop dead date that they can't go beyond it. You might have to estimate overtime. What are the EBO requirements, i.e., special subcontractors that need to participate on the project? What are the qualifications of the bidder and the team that are required? Because sometimes the owners will ask for specific qualifications of the personnel executing the work. Any affidavit, and if there's any affidavits and addendums. Next, please.
Hey, Louis, at the 5-minute mark here, we're going to kind of, open it up to questions because we're at like 9:51, right?
Okay.
So again, I want to make sure that,
Well, yeah, I just want to rush through the next couple then. Again, attend the required. Can you go to the next one, please? Yeah, general conditions. The contractor has the sole responsibility for satisfying himself that concerning the nature, location of the work and existing conditions, i.e. it's your job to find out everything. Okay, where you're going to get water, power, electricity from, how the climate's going to impact your execution of the work, what the topography of the ground is. You need to know whether it's a flat site or a slope site, what the equipment is needed. Next, please. Again, you will get this document, and so you'll be able to go through all of these. Make sure you understand the site conditions, and document them if they're different from what's in the documents, so that you can justify things later on. And site conditions is a big area of change orders in construction. Okay, next, please. Delays. Make sure you document your delays, contractor, owner, and third party delays, acts of gods or delays. Make sure they're documented well. Know what your liquidated damages are, and make sure you don't need to get to them, but make sure what your risk is associated with liquidated damages if they're in your contract. Next, please. Make sure you've got your permits and fees. Every local jurisdictions have their requirements, and they will not allow you to do the work if you've not paid those fees and those permits. Assign your contracts, owner approved required before contract is assigned. Consent of owner for subcontractors. Make sure that if you've got subcontractors, that the contractor or the owner or the construction manager has approved them, because sometimes that they won't accept certain contractors. Okay, next, please. Coordinate with cooperation is required among contractors. So make sure that you can work with the people that's on this project. Communicate with your project managers and document any problems. Again, don't trust your memory for things. The judge is gonna prefer it on a piece of tissue paper than he's gonna say that I remember so and so. So have anything that happens that you think might cause a problem, or the justification for managing a problem later on, write it down. Even if you didn't put it on a computer, write it down and put it away somewhere. Next, please. Invoice and payments, follow the instructions. They're always in the bid documents. Watch out for delayed payments based on certain criteria. Make sure you have at least a 45-day layout to be able to address this work. We are in an industry that is notoriously famous for making late payments. Am I correctly?
Yeah, unfortunately.
People in other industries cannot understand what we go through in the construction industry to get paid. And that is one of the risk elements of being in this business, where 30-day is a wish, is a dream for some people in this business. And so make sure you understand that and have the resources ready to address that, whether in terms of claims or in terms of the money needed to carry you through. Understand what the retainage clause is and when the money will be released, and any special requirements that are required under the contract. Next, please. Change orders, change notices, and administrative charges. We know what a change order is. It's different from a change notice. And then make sure that you're anything to do with changes, you're documenting. And then there's an administrative change, which is simply, they might change the address of the owner or something like that. But the change order and the change notice, make sure that you're tracking them well and understand them. Next, please. Just have a couple more to go. Contract changes may be used to modify things. Yeah. So the changes might be to modify things on the drawings, modify the time, change the required performance, and so on. The method of shipping or getting things to you, or the place where things are going to be delivered. Anything can be changed on a project, and it just needs to be documented so that you as the contractor are properly compensated for whatever the change is. Next, please. It's in your interest to do that. And you'll be able to read in the document the things that you should be looking out for when you're dealing with change orders. Make sure you get signatures for everything before you execute that change. Again, you don't want somebody to say, no, I don't remember telling you that. Okay, next, please. On bid day, check everything. Submit the bid as the prime with enough time to analyze. Sorry, submit your bid to the primes with enough time to analyze and select and incorporate. Secret and select and incorporate. Submit bid to the customer before the cutoff time. Don't wait till. Don't give yourself half an hour to get to get there. Make sure you give yourself 2 hours to get there. It's better to get there early than to get there with only 5 minutes to spare, because anything can happen. Wait till the bid is open. If the bids are open at the same time, just spend the time and wait for the bids to be open so you know where you are. And document the information at the bid opening so that you can take it back to analyze if you didn't get the job, and you're not going to get every job, where you were, and you can do some back checking to see how you should have done or what you can do different to win the next bid. Next, please. Recap. Things to do: read all the documents, prepare list of responsibilities, apply for the bond, identify other required supporting documents, identify scope of work, so on and so on, prepare your cost estimate. See, it's just one of a long list of things. It's the biggest one. It takes the most time, but it's when it comes to doing the bid, it's just one of many things you have to do. Prepare your schedule, prepare a layout of the site, and manage your RFIs and addendums. Next, please. Okay, attend the pre-bid meeting, attend the site, communicate with the PM, ask questions, and double check everything. And then submit your winning bid. Sometimes it won't win all the time.
Yeah.
Next, please.
Louis,
and I think that's, yeah, do a post bid. Of course, after you've decided if you won it and left too much money on the table, you definitely want to make sure you do an analysis to not do that again. You don't want to be 30% lower than the next lowest bid. You want to be 0.5% lower than the next lowest bid. Next, please. And that's it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, thank you so much. That's just amazing, amazing information. We appreciate it. There's a couple of questions that we have. Let's look at the one question that was early in was about cost loading schedules. Can you explain how to cost load? How does that work in the estimate?
Well, I'm not a scheduler, and so I'm not really qualified to answer that because it's more on the scheduling side than on the estimating side. What you must do is make sure that the estimate and the schedule are in alignment, i.e., you're going to do the estimate the way the scheduler is going to schedule the project. So that's where, if you remember earlier on, we're talking about elemental estimating, or the estimating by the elements of the project, not the trades of the project. Because you don't do all of the masonry, you do all of the exterior wall, or you do all of the windows, and so on and so forth. That information is then provided to the scheduler. And there are tools now where you can do both at the same time.
Correct.
But I'm not qualified to go deep into that subject. But cost loading schedules is very important from the contractor side of point of view to see how his cash flow is going to go, and from the owner's side point of view to see how he's going to be paying his cash going out, and for the contractors for how his cash is supposed to be coming in.
And I think you spoke to the big picture. Basically, it's making sure that the schedule meets the budget from a burn rate perspective. And as business owners, that's what you want to know, is that what is your burn rate? And you can find that if you're tracking well, it's good. But if you see in the middle of the project, you spent 50% of the money and you've got 75% more to go, you got a problem. So that's that is. Let's see. There's another question. There's a question. Someone wants to, there's a couple that want to talk to you. So I think that's, I guess that's true with the question. I would welcome your questions of how happy to discuss any experiences. So they want to know kind of how you got into this business, what got you into that. And I guess you talked about that a little bit through your dialogue, and I gave that overview in the introduction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been a construction estimator since I've got my first holiday summer job in 19.
Oh my goodness.
I worked with a contractor, and I was just fascinated with how they put their numbers together. Went back to school and decided I was going to do construction management, and that was the only way that you could do estimating. I then went on to do another degree in quantity surveying, which is the estimating professionally done in the UK.
Right, it's a Brit thing, quantity surveying.
And then I came to the States in 1979, and I've been estimating ever since.
Absolutely.
So
good deal. There was another question about.
We don't have enough young people in this business, and I urge all young people to look into it. You know, I've handled a few of our young brothers and sisters over the years, and they're amazing. They've turned out to be amazing estimators over time, but they knew nothing about it going before. Our academic institutions have not done a very good job of incorporating this profession into their curriculum.
That's correct. And quite frankly, they get paid sometimes more than project managers because the value add that they bring early on is huge.
Yeah.
Okay, there's another question. Let's see. It says, should a change order be engaged for changing that do not require monetary changes? That's a great question.
Yes, you want everything documented because you do not know when something is going to morph into money.
That's correct. We'll touch on that on the next session, but the big picture is if you're impacted by someone, say you scheduled something that cost $1 and you ready to spend your $1, but someone in the middle of that $1 caused you to wait a couple of more days to do your work, which costs you $1.50.
Yeah.
Big picture, right? That idea is that you definitely got to monitor that and watch that and document that because someone needs to change that. Or you get in a scenario where you have liquidated damages and your schedule is impacted, but not by your fault. So you have to document that because you could be charged liquidated damages, but it's not your issue, it's someone else. So there's some remedy for that.
Yeah.
Let's see, the next question is formal education needed for estimating? I think you talked about that.
Well, yes, I mean, it's not in the United States. It is in other countries. Where the profession is called quantity surveying. It's part of the group of the surveying group of professions, which is land surveying, property surveying, i.e. property management, and quantity surveying, which is construction. It's really project controls and estimating.
Right.
You really need to have some construction management background is the best thing, but engineers and architects are, the original old estimators were never formally educated. They just learned it hardcore on the job.
Right.
So today's technology and requirements, it is best to have that, but it's not absolutely necessary.
Right, and some of the challenges that we've seen in the market, because I started estimating many years ago, is that the computers think they do a lot for, but to really be a good estimator, you got to be count the wires in the estimate, count the rods in the concrete, just measure it yourself, and you'll be able to learn how to do it from a numbers perspective. Then you've got to watch how it works in the field, because the other side that you guys are talking about is how much time does it take to do your work. And if you're an estimate, you said you take 2 weeks to do a job, and because your guys are slow or your girls are slow on the job from a production perspective, you end up costing more to your project bottom line. So that blows your estimate out the water. So yeah, that's definitely.
Let me just say one thing about the type of estimating we do. Our estimating is broken down by discipline. So we have electrical, mechanical. So Louis, does estimating, but Louis does not do mechanical, electrical, structural, civil. We break those out into separate disciplines. So a lot of the people that work for us are, let's say they went to school for engineering, like civil engineering or electrical or mechanical engineering, and they became cost estimators,
right.
Through that. So, we don't believe in, for our company, we don't believe in general estimators, like, just saying, hey, okay, because he's a doctor, he can do brain surgery.
Right.
So we break it down into, but it's different on our side than it is on the general contractor side, right? General contractor is just looking at labor and materials. And when we're doing our projects, sometimes we don't even, these are concepts that we're doing sometimes, and we don't have a lot of information. And so our engineers need to understand, okay, it's not there yet in the drawings, but it's going to have to be there. And so we're accounting for a lot of information that hasn't even materialized yet in the drawings. So at that very first step, when we're at maybe the schematic designs,
right?
We may be looking at information, because when we tell the owner, hey, it's X number, let's say $50 million right now, right? When we get to the next side, the milestone, which is the design document, we still want to be, okay, it's 50 here, it's 50 at design, it's 50
Correct.
at CD, it's 50 at CD number 2, ready to go out for bid, right? So we try to, stay there. And that's a little bit different on our side than it is on you guys' side for the general contractor.
Understood.
Yeah, remember that the documents can change along the life cycle of the project. The one thing that cannot change is the budget. And the budget is set without any information, but it better be the same number when the low bid come in, right? And that's the dilemma that estimators find ourselves in that we have got to be right from day one to the end. The architect can change the shape of the building. We can't change the number on the estimate.
Correct.
So we need to be right from the beginning.
Very
and I know
good.
that's kind of hyperbole and so on,
No,
but
you're right.
there are ways to try and mitigate and manage that.
That's correct. I think that one of the last questions I see is, how did Mr. Thomas start estimating? You might see that, Lee. So,
well, I saw that, and the thing, I don't estimate.
I heard that.
Funny story here. In 2003, I went to work for Louis. Louis was the president of U.S. Cost, and I worked for Louis. And then I left Louis in 2007 and went to their competitor that allowed me to get into the business of cost estimating. And we were doing it for the federal government down at Aiken, the nuclear facility. And then we was up at the National Nuclear Security Administration and stuff like that. So full circle comes around. Louis is ready to retire. I have the company up and running. And so my background is in accounting, and I was Louis' controller over at the firm. And so that's my background. So I don't do what Louis does. I just, support him in everything that he does and make sure that, he has the talent around him. But he knows people that do what they do. I don't do it at all.
Absolutely. That's a good lesson for those that are looking to expand their business. You got to have folks that have experiences in other places. Any other questions? Because we don't want to hold you long. We appreciate it.
Yes, I have a question.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it goes to what you just said. A small business, we can't do everything by own. We cannot be running business, doing estimation. And how do you find good estimators? That's one question. And is estimation something to sub out to other company, like your company, which does, estimation? Or also, if you bring in an estimator, he may not be experienced in all different fields. So even what we learned today, most of us, we may not find even time to go through it and do it. And, estimation is the backbone. If you have a wrong estimation, you leave money on the table. So how do we do it?
Well, we've worked with small businesses before. We had one good friend that was a general contractor, and we kind of stepped in because his estimator was not a good estimator. And Louis, I'm talking about Dr. Lynn.
Dr. Lynn, our friend.
Yeah. So we did some work for a very good general contractor here, and helped him out on a number of projects that he had. But the thing about finding good estimators, I think it's easier on the general contractor side, because like I said, at that point you're just looking at it from materials and labor from that side. But finding good ones, because all these guys like Louis, they've been doing this 30, 40 years. I think software has definitely is going to play a significant role in helping the industry and especially small businesses, contractors. But you find a firm like us, and again, we create a relationship, right? We work with small businesses, people that have come in and had very small budgets, but our goal is to help each other, and so we want to work together. So, but finding good ones, and because Louis them have done this for so long, I really don't know how you.
really difficult. You will find that a lot of estimators in this country are immigrants from other countries that went to estimating school, i.e. quantity surveying school, have quantity surveying and engineering degrees, and because there are none here, the opportunity is really good for them here. Again, I have reached out to, over the years, to many organizations trying to find ways to get the academic industry to respond to this, and it just doesn't happen. I'm not sure when we're going to get there. You see, there was a time when estimating wasn't important in American construction, trust me, because money was so cheap and things were so cheap in America that you just gave you the contractor, what's the number? All right, go ahead, build it, make sure I get it by so-and-so. And then, since the 70s and the 80s, when things started to tighten up and things really got competitive in America, estimating has become more and more important to the point today. But academically, it's not been supplied.
Yeah,
but let me give you a general contractor's perspective.
Yes, please.
I do my own estimating,
yeah,
as the owner, president of my company, but I would not bid my estimate because I'm using subcontractors in many of the trades that I'm using. If I cannot find a subcontractor to perform at the estimate that I've given, then I won the project, I'm going to eat some costs probably.
Yes.
So I use my estimate to have some idea of what the project should cost. When I get quotes from various trades, then I have some idea of what it should cost, but I cannot use my number unless I know that that's a firm cost. I'm going to provide my own labor and buy my own material. But if I'm relying on a subcontractor, I can only use my estimate to have some ballpark figure for it.
Exactly.
So as a general contractor, I'm pulling many subs together to get the work done. And
Yes.
I've got to rely on them, but my estimate only gives me a guide to know what the cost should be.
Right, you must have that guide. I mentioned it earlier in the presentation. You must have that guide. Again, I went back to the plumbing. Although I'm not a plumbing contractor, I should understand how much per fixture or whatever the metric is for plumbing, for that kind of plumbing that's going in, and therefore I can use that to evaluate those sub bids that I'm getting.
Absolutely.
But you're right. I mean, 50 years ago, you would have done a lot of the work yourself. Not anymore. It's just like the medical business. One time, one doctor took care of 50% of your issues. Now, one doctor just refers you to all the other doctors that take care of 10 different things. Or the 10 different doctors you have is the same thing in the construction industry.
Any other questions? I don't want to hold you guys too late.
Yeah, I want to ask Cliff from his experience, Cliff. So let's say maybe you base your bid on your subcontractor, but maybe they are off. But you're the one on the hook. What happens, if they are really off and then you're the one that the client is looking up to? And sometimes if they bail on you, subcontractors.
That's a good question. And I have to be careful of that, because if I have, and I try to get more than one estimate for each trade, so I have some kind of guide. But if I see someone is low and I don't believe that's a good number, I will let them know to check their numbers, because I don't want to be caught holding a number that I've got to pay if they can't. I don't want to be a low bidder on a project that we can't produce on. So I think a shrewd general contractor would ask the sub to verify their numbers before they'd run with them. And I have sometimes not taken a low bid because I know that that number is too low.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and we get into that sometimes where, an owner gets a number from and we've gone through those exercises where an owner have gotten a number from a general contractor sub and they don't believe the number. And so we've had to sit down, put our own numbers together, then go to the general contractor and the sub and say, okay, hey, let's go through these together so that the owner has some, certainty or more insurance that your number is a good number, because they don't believe, the number. So we've done those exercises on behalf of owners as well. That's real,
But in the long run, this is a risk business. Yeah. And you've got to find ways to mitigate your risk. The gentleman there mitigates his risk by having an understanding of what it should be before he goes out there. You know, I know what the price should be, so you can't get around me, but you're the one that's still going to be responsible for it.
That's correct.
Yeah. Last thing before we go out, and I think Louis, you mentioned in your presentation, and I think it's worth mentioning when we're talking about customers and understanding your customers, the big difference between a commercial customer and when you're working for, you know, a government entity. Let's say you want to do work at an airport, which is totally different. And, you know, like Louis talked about in his presentation, where, you know, you're going to do work at a certain time, you got breakdown, you got set up, you got to get out because the airport has to be back functioning, you know, and that's a lot different than a commercial customer. And so it's like, you know, really understanding the customer, the type of work that you're getting yourself into, the onboarding, and all those costs associated with onboarding those employees for those type of customers. I don't think a lot of us think about those things. We're so worried about trying to get the bid right for the scope of work, but we don't take into account the other soft costs that, you know, have to happen of getting these people onboarded, or if you're going to have to escort them when they're on premises, those type of things, because they don't have badges. So there's a lot of work that you really have to do in terms of researching the type of customer that you're going to be working for before you actually go out and really start to pursue that type of work, because it's a lot different between the commercial market and when you're working for these government agencies. Like Louis said, they may have a lay down area for you, they may not. You might have to go buy it. But those are the type of things that we know, that we see in terms of when we're trying to get these bigger projects and get on these bigger teams, and then we're trying to get this work. And it's like, you know, one thing is getting the work, but really before you get it, you may need to know sometimes, hey, this is not worth it. I need to walk away from it, because all of the things that you're going to go through, especially like at the airport, you might as well count on about a 75-day to 90-day delay before you're going to get paid. We would like to get paid earlier, but 75 days is pretty much what they're hitting, you know, right now. And this is the Atlanta airport, the world's busiest airport in the world. And unless you can sustain that type of, you know, extended payment period, because these contracts are pay when paid. They're not, hey, you know, we're 30 days out. They're pay when paid. So when the general contractors get paid, that's when you get paid. Now there's language in there that says, okay, when the general contractor get paid, then he has to pay you within 7 days. But if he's not getting paid to 75 days from now, you know, a lot of businesses, you know, crumble beyond that type of financial weight. So again, understanding the market, understanding the opportunity that you're going for, and it's out here. A lot of work is coming down the pike from the infrastructure stuff that they're going to be doing. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity, but again, understanding the work and making sure that you're putting good estimates together. And so hopefully we've, you know, added some value to you guys tonight in what we've been able to share with you. But our contact information is here. Definitely, if you got questions, you can fire them off at Louis, Hebrew, and Miss Beth has our information. So definitely, you know, we're here in the business to help each other. So our doors are always open.
All right. Thanks so much, guys. Let's give them a round of applause. Appreciate everything.
All right.
I know it's getting late and we've answered all the questions. That's great. So we look forward to getting back together. And let's see, what does that say, Miss Beth? So that's some information for the next class. So just excited about it.
Yes,
so, yep. Appreciate you guys being here. Miss Beth, you want to close it out?
Yes, for the next session, I will be emailing you 2 articles to prepare from Mr. Ron Mangum. It's from the Project Management World Journal articles. The first article will be how to get executives to act for project success. And the second one will be business acumen and business spirit. I will email those articles to you to help you get prepared. That's what Mr. Mangum would like for you to read prior to coming to the next session. And next slide. Is there a next slide? Is that it? And also, I will be calling the people who have not confirmed their exact name and company name. It's very imperative that you give that information to me because we have to get the certificates done in DC. And I do have a few people who have contacted me with some edits. And I will call each person and I need a yes from you so that we could proceed and get our certificates produced for this class, Nashville BEP. That's it, I believe.
Right, thank you so much. Let's have a good evening.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Louis. Appreciate everything.
Okay, bye.
Bye,
Good
bye.
night.
Thank you.